All right, welcome to my turn one overview. I plan on doing some of this for every turn up until the end of the game. My name is Jeddick. I am the Azure commander for my very first game of Days Without Strife, and I wanted to quickly go over what factions are in this game and go over what's happened so far in day one. So we have the Azurites, us, down in the bottom right. Our capital city is Azure City. We have Cassia Verity et al. Up here in the top left, and I think Quorum is their capital. And then we have the Worker Rebellion, Commie Bastards, over here in the far west. I'm not sure, probably Union Hall, if I had to guess, their capital. Rosemore Estate in the bottom left, with Mitrace as their capital, and last but not least, the Arrows of Artemis over there in the top right, with Windheart as their capital. So, day one, a little bit of hilarity took place. I don't know what Peerless Peak, what the Rose representative up in Peerless Peak is doing up there in this godforsaken land, but the Discord's reaction was super funny, and I appreciate the border gore that's happening in this place. Compared to the EU game, we are already in Clowntown, and I kind of hope it continues. So let's go back to Arrows of Artemis. They caused us no small amount of grief early in the morning when we were reaching out to the Spy Master because they own Nighthold, and we were looking to purchase Nighthold from them as our first base of operations. And, the Spy Master let us know that we were outbid. They didn't tell us by who, but it became pretty evident when they sold the city to the Arrows. We would have bid more if the Spy Master had let us know, but fair play, they received a better offer from the Arrows, and so they accepted it. Thankfully, over here in Jinx, we opened up conversations very early. I'm talking like first 20 minutes of the game with the Highwaymen, and we were able to establish very friendly relations with the Highwaymen, and I know this is early day one. We're about 3.5 hours from the first night turn, when my troops get to start getting mobilized, but I'll make a video for that later. This is just for the day. So the plan right now is for me to march my guys from Azure City up to Cobalt, and my guys from Yvonne up to Eastwall. We have a bit of an agreement with the Arrows right now, where we won't go into Nighthold, we won't even contest them, we'll stay friendly with them. We'll take Eastwall as the Azurites, but it's kind of only because of the lack of stability that the North is suffering from right now. Let's look at Cassia for a moment. Cassia is spread out all around here, and there's no way that they have enough armies to maintain all of this. So the question becomes, who is going to take the cities and when? Because those cities will be taken. I think that Rose is a prime candidate for Leafburn, because Rose kind of got boxed in. They've got no Lebensraum. They got nowhere to go to, except for Zephyr. However, early in the game, we were talking with Rose, and they had talked about wanting to take both Oxbriar and Zephyr. We said, Oxbriar, no problem. Not a problem whatsoever. That's totally yours. But Zephyr is a simple hop, skip, and a jump away from Azure City. It's right next to it. So we would feel a lot more comfortable if we had a one-zone buffer between any other faction in Azure City. And we think that's very reasonable, and Rose agreed. So I will be taking Zephyr, either me or our aristocrat at turn 2. Because more than likely I am going to rush my troops from Azure City up to Cobalt, and as part of our alliance with the Highwaymen, he created a tunnel from Cobalt to Kingsland. So no matter how you cut it, on this map, Azure City is only 2 steps away from the Kingsland. And I want to take my commander and my whole army of 15 intrepid explorers and go to Cobalt, and then next turn to Kingsland. We're going to rush Kingsland, and we'll see how this works out. You know, this is day one enthusiasm, but we're going to see how this works out, and I'm hoping that with the lack of unity in the North, and the fact that we have more than positive speaking terms, pretty darn close to an alliance with the Arrows, And we have a real alliance with the Rosewell estate, that we have a pretty powerful turn 1. We're in a good spot. Next turn, we are doing a little bit of spreadsheet magic, and I believe I'll be getting a airship, which would really just allow me to reach out and touch different parts of the map I wouldn't otherwise have access to. And yeah, I'm very hopeful for the game. I appreciate my teammates, and I will fill you back in when this evening's turn starts. Thanks for watching. All right, welcome back to turn 1 night. Just like I thought. A lot of stuff happened. Oh my gosh. In addition to that, I am a giga noob, and I completely misunderstood how armies work. I thought that I had to wait until combat started to move my armies. That is not the case. If for anyone in my legacy, if anyone watches this video and eventually plays, remember that if you are the commander and you are moving troops, this question mark over here to the left of the name, to the left of the city icon, that's where your number of troops will sit. You can click that number, and that's how you can order army orders. So thankfully it didn't affect us too much this turn, but it was kind of embarrassing, and it was kind of awkward getting spam pinged by the game masters and by my teammates to make my orders, and I was 2 towns away. But it worked out. Thankfully, it didn't get too bad. So a lot of stuff happened. Firstly, I believe Rose has betrayed us. We've been given information that has led us to believe that Rose, previously our turn 1 day allies, have been planning some bad things for us. We received tips from the Spy Master to expect trouble in Jinx this turn. So I've had to split my forces, half in Jinx, half in Cobalt, for this forward operating force. I want to do a 2-pronged attack on Kingsland, one supported by the commander in Jinx, the other supported by the commando, who I've not mentioned yet, but we bid on an agent, and we lost that bid. We bid on a different agent as well, and we lost that one too. But the one that we were randomly assigned, thank you RNGesus, was the commando, which actually works out really well for us, because the commando has this cool ability where he's basically a commander. He has this first strike ability. Army executes orders before other officers in combat, potentially interrupting their orders. So my intention is a 10 army with the commander straight to Kingsland, and a 10 army with the commando straight to Kingsland, and to establish a military director or military governor in Kingsland. Now, military governors, every checkpoint, generate free troops, free defensive troops. And when you're trying to hold something like Kingsland, which everyone wants, you need all of the help you can get. So, looking forward to tomorrow. Hopefully, future me will know, but hopefully tomorrow I will have an airship as support, and we'll be able to have an airship to counter enemy airships over Kingsland. But that remains to be seen. Also, over here in the east, East Wall has not yet been taken. It could have been had I been here, but we think that Arrow is probably going to follow through with this part of the deal. We're thinking of just taking 5 troops each, and some kind of military representative, like the Marshal, and just throwing our armies at each other over and over at East Wall, and trying to farm Renown that way. So if you don't know, military agents can get Renown by fighting. So if we are correct, Arrow and Azure will be farming Renown in East Wall and trying to compete with some of the other factions. Speaking of the other factions, let's look at the Renown totals. Cassia is sitting at 30, which I believe they are the front runners. Worker Rebellion is at 29. Rose is at 22. Arrow is at 23. And we are sitting at a meager 20 points. So hopefully day 2 is a great day for us. I would very much love that. And a quick thing with the wildcards. I didn't go over them turn 1 day, but who do we have in here? We have the Merchant, the Renegade, the Spymaster, the Brotherhood, the Aeronaut, the Highwayman, and the Wanderer. Now, reverse order, what do they do? The Wanderer is kind of this vagrant that goes around and looks for these red icons on the map. And he gets treasure or something, and it helps him. I don't know exactly how the Wanderer works. The Highwayman, we did talk about him turn 1. He's an ally of ours. He sets up these portions of orange on the road, and whenever you go over those, he gets a toll. He robs your train. The Aeronaut. The Aeronaut is somewhere around here, looking for a pink airship. Right here. The Hurricane. The Aeronaut is it's an entire faction built around an airship that's for hire. Airships are incredibly powerful force multipliers for your army. They can deal a lot of damage from the sky and be very annoying. The Brotherhood, this is some conglomeration of agents led by this guy called the Boss, and each of the agents serve a different purpose, but I think they are kind of like a little self-contained economy. I need to educate myself a bit more on the Brotherhood. We have not dealt with them at all so far, and this is my first game. Spymaster, this guy, he did kind of quote-unquote backstab us turn 1, but it's fine. No lasting hatred between us. In fact, he has been pretty desperate for work, and I think he's probably pretty far behind some of the others, like the Aeronaut and who we haven't gotten to, the Renegade. I think those are probably our 2 leaders in Wildcards. So the Spymaster has been kind of desperate for work and has been getting some extra, he's been buying some dashes, and he's been sending us a lot of messages. This is not cheap, what he's doing here. He's been offering a lot of information to us, and we've been paying him some Electrum on the side because he felt he wasn't accelerating his economy enough. The Renegade is basically just mobile armies, and they are hard to pin down. They are mercenaries for hire, straight up combat. And then the Merchant is just what it sounds like, a merchant faction that can move resources around and sell resources for Electrum. So I think that's a pretty good overview for day 1 night. I look forward to tomorrow, and let's try to get this 20 up closer to a 30 or something tomorrow. I would love to get some more victory points, or Renown, as they call it. Final look at our military. I'm sending 10 guys to Jinx, 10 to Cobalt, 5 to Yvonne, and then a little defense force of 5 back in Azure City to protect our rear. All right, have a good night. I will see you back for turn 2 day. Bye. Okay, here we go for turn 2 day, the day half of our turn. So, okay, the astute among you will notice right off the bat that King's Land is painted a particular color, and it's a beautiful color. It's a glorious color. King's Land has been taken by the Azurites. At the start of turn 2, the first checkpoint, we had our aristocrat sitting in Cobalt, and thanks to the Highwayman from our turn 1 deal, you can watch that video, turn 1 day, the Highwayman created a new tunnel for us from Cobalt to Kingsland. We made immediate use of it, and we've taken the city. Now, right off the bat, if we go to Kingsland, we look around. Who do we have in here? Worker Rebellion, Spymaster, Brotherhood, and Highwayman. Highwayman so far today has not been open. We've been trying to talk to them about reinforcing the roads around Kingsland, because I'm worried about a multinational alliance springing up from the ashes of the north and coming to knock down my front door. I would dislike that very much. I will get into the telegrams and stuff of what's going on. I've received some feedback that people would like to see more of a general overview of how the faction is doing and not just a little recap of what took place, but also what's currently going on. So I will go into the telegrams and the forums. So anyway, where was I? All right, yes, worried about a Northern Alliance coming and knocking down the doors of Kingsland. You know what would really help with that? How about a freaking airship? And we are, if I could click properly, our planner is on his way to Yvonne, the city of Yvonne, and we are going to overwork Yvonne and get 4 steel, and we are going to make ourselves an airship. So I will have an airship to help with my defense of Kingsland. In addition, last night I received the commando as a military agent, and he's down here over in Cobalt along with my commander. And I am planning on bringing both of them to Kingsland this evening. And hopefully they will be uncontested. Now, going back into the forum here in Kingsland, I have to talk about the geopolitical situation. I'm going to catch up on this myself. But what happened immediately was the workers sent us a telegram asking to join the Kingsland forum. The highwayman was already in the Kingsland forum, and the spymaster showed up asking to join the forum, along with the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood let us know that Cass and the Arrows are working on an alliance to attack us. Now, that's not good. That's not good at all. Cass is by far the clear Renown winner right now at 34 points. Workers' Rebellion is behind them in second place with 5 fewer points, sitting at 29. We are in third place as the Azurites with 25. And then you have the Arrows of Artemis at 23 and the Rosemore Estate at 22. So we quickly jumped from last place to third place just by taking Kingsland and collecting resources from it, which gives us trade goods, booda booda boom, and a renown. Right now, I think it's fair to say the entirety of our strategy revolves around trying to make efficient use of the military commanders that we have and stack as much renown as possible on those commanders, because military agent renown translates directly to support, and support is a multiplier to your army size. So right now, if I have 10 troops in Cobalt and my commander has 2 renown, when my commander goes to war with my troops, the support will be 2. You take 2, multiply it by 10, I have a total strength of 20. The goal is to try to get 20 troops into Kingsland, and then at the start of next turn, set up a military governor on Kingsland to start generating free troops, and then consolidate our gains. That's going to be hard to do. Why? Well, think about it this way. If Cobalt goes towards Kingsland, and unfortunately I'm kind of telegraphing my intentions by having both the commander and the commando in Cobalt, if I'm the arrow player, I'm probably just going to YOLO my 5 troops into Cobalt and see what happens. So there's a couple ways I can try to prevent that. One is by taking the troops in Azure City and sending them to Cobalt preemptively, but that gives up Zephyr. And Zephyr would be nice to have because of victory points. We need Renown. And I need to read up on the rules after this, but I'm pretty sure that you can get an increase to the amount of troops that you can deploy based off of your Renown above 30. But I don't recall. I'm going to have to look it up. I am still a giga noob. This is all from the perspective of a noob, but I'm having a great time. This is a fantastic game. It's so complex, and already off the bat, I'm pretty sure I can say definitively, I would rather be a faction player than a wild card. I really enjoy the aspect of reaching out to other people to kind of bounce ideas off of, and not just being my own little self-contained experience. I think a lot of players resonate with the idea of the wild card, kind of intrinsically with just how they are, but I really appreciate the collaboration. I love being on a team, and I love having these little projects going on across the faction and being able to have people to share my worries with. It seems like being a wild card is quite dagger and cloak, or cloak and dagger, I guess. You're always in the shadows, and you have no one to look out for you. So what else is going to happen? Rose is probably going to take Leaf Burn, because why wouldn't they? They have 15 people on Siren Song, and they can just easily walk over and take Leaf Burn. I don't believe that they're going to attack Grand Mill. Making an enemy of the Workers' Union for a single factory might not be worth it when this is basically uncontested. And, you know, they can just take this for free. No problem whatsoever. The question becomes, if Jinx troops move to Kingsland, do I trust Rose to not move their Oxbriar troops to Jinx? And I'm not sure that I do. I'm not sure that I do. I brought up to our speaker the idea of offering them Zephyr, which was previously going to be ours, because right now I don't have enough armies to hold it and apply the same amount of pressure that I think I need to on Kingsland to bring the other factions to the table and to take us more seriously. However, when we pop our airship in the next couple checkpoints, it's going to be 2 checkpoints until our planner gets to Yvonne to overwork Yvonne. Some things might change geopolitically, and we will not be trapped on the ground like the other factions are, like Rose and Arrow. We will join the ranks of those with airships, the Aeronaut, Cass, and the Workers' Union. So a lot of really interesting things happening. Let's go into the forums and see what's going on real quick. All right, Azurite speaker. We would very much appreciate the barrister. Yes, that was also a thought. We're thinking about hiring the Brotherhood's barrister to walk south and just claim Zephyr for us. The Brotherhood wants 1.4 Electrum for the barrister. I don't think that's worth it. I think that's too expensive. The workers are buying the builder. Builder is a great upgrade. Fantastic character. Workers thanking us for letting them be part of the Kingsland forum. And let's see. Pardon me, workers, I have some information that may be valuable to you regarding the nations of the North. The nature of this information is delicate, so I would need to be paid for such information. So that's convenient. And then it goes into recess. That's timing right there. That's good timing. Maybe they brought it out into telegrams, who knows. So let's go down the line. Merchant. We want to steal. How much do you want for it? 1.7 Electrum. We would like to buy 2 steel because we want to upgrade a city to get the overflow vats upgrade, in addition to collecting the overworked steel from Yvonne or Jinx. The thing is, we already collected from Jinx. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. And then down the line, Renegade offered us a deal, 6 Electrum, and they would help us keep kings. 6 Electrum? Bro, I don't know who in the hell you think we are. We are the broke-ass Azurites. We were in 5th place until this morning. No, you're not going to get 6 Electrum from us, bro. Good luck, though. Good luck, well played. Spymaster. I said in my previous video I was surprised with how many telegrams the Spymaster is sending, and then someone DM'd me saying that the Spymaster has free telegrams. So I guess if that's the case, that's pretty cool. Spymaster has been pretty fun. So, let's see. Brotherhood, we talked with them a little bit about the Barb and the Brig. Both being bid on. I think we just don't have the money for that. We kind of need to keep our 2.6 Electrum for a rainy day. We can't commit to spending a whole lot right now. Here was the continuation of our agreement with the Highwayman. Now, I'm sure when the videos come out, he's going to realize that he was scammed, but we agreed to half of the Jinx Electrum production that we ever had. But if we don't produce Electrum from Jinx, we don't owe him anything. But we kind of got around that by offering the 0.5 each time. I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure what the what the goal was with this, but it's been a good time. And I'm just going to let that situation develop. And the Wanderer, to my knowledge, we have not spoken to a single time. The Wanderer has not reached out to us. We have not reached out to the Wanderer. Have a good game, bro. I don't know what you've done this game, but hope you have a good time. Let's see. So we talked about the workers. We talked about Rose with Leaf Burn. Arrows. We plan on farming Eastwall for Renown. If my Marshal is able to get free Renown fighting over Eastwall, that is very powerful. And I don't know right now, if you look in Hunt Site, they do not have a military representative in Hunt Site. So their commander might not know that to glean the benefits of fighting over and over in Eastwall, you have to have a military representative there to take part in the battle. So I'm not going to correct them. I'm not, you never, Sun Tzu said you don't interrupt, or you don't correct an enemy when he's making his mistakes. So I'm sure that's some bastardization of a translation, but you get the idea. Oh, let's see what they said. Still interested in the barrister? I need to know before I send him another direction. 1.4E. That's pretty freaking expensive. I'm not going to make that decision. So that wraps up things for turn 2 day. Tune in next time for turn 2 night, and we'll see just how quickly this board falls apart. Thanks. Bye. All right, what's going on, y'all? So I'm doing something today that I can't guarantee that I'm going to do every day, but this is going to be a very important combat coming up here in about 5 minutes, and I want to go over, well, what's happened, and what I expect to happen over the next couple minutes, and after that, we're also going to look at the fallout of the turn 2 combats. So, firstly, the standings. I know combat is in 4 minutes, so I can't go too long. Cassia is at 36 points. They are the front runners. And then it is the Azurites. We jumped from, last place to second place pretty quickly. And then we have the Worker Rebellion in third place, followed by Arrows, 1 point behind, and Rose in last place, 1 point behind number 4. So, Kingsland has been ambushed by the Renegade. Eastwall has been ambushed by the Renegade. I know previously we didn't have Eastwall, but we were able to cut a deal with the Brotherhood, and they must not have been paying attention, but we cut a deal with the Brotherhood in Kingsland, where the barrister was, and we used 3 checkpoints to go 1, 2, 3, and take Eastwall. Unfortunately, it was neutral. The city was neutral for a little bit too long, and the Renegade was able to pop her army. So that's a shame, but at least we have Eastwall now, and we are getting some intel. Waiting a bit before stabbing the commander. We'll stab before combat so they have minimal time to react. Okay. Yes, the Spymaster is about to put to sleep Cass's commander. There's so many things happening. I'm going to try to get through it. So we cut a deal with the Brotherhood from Kingsland to go 1, 2, 3 and take Eastwall. We figured out that they wanted to spawn an army in Zephyr, so we cut a deal with Rose to rush their aristocrat down to Zephyr and make it an owned city, a controlled city, so that the Renegade could not summon an army there, since she can summon her armies in neutral cities. So we dealt with the neutral city problem, and then we had the issue of actually trying to hold Kingsland. Now, I don't think we can hold Kingsland. Oh, by the way, we got an airship, the Umbra, and Arrow airship has been chasing us around. We bombed Nighthold. I bombed Nighthold and I killed their troops there. I'm going for Nighthold with Cobalt, and I hope that we can take it. They are almost certainly going to attack Yvonne with Eastwall, if I had to guess, the Renegade army from Eastwall. But if they do go to Nighthold, I'm going to see how this plays out, but going on the Highwayman route cuts their support by 1, so they would not get the multiplier for the Marshal, the ×2 multiplier. They would just get the 1 because they're on the Highwayman route. Let's see what he says. Cass will take Kings, Brigadier, Arrow, counter bids with route. You match. Okay. Yeah, basically a little bidding war between us and Arrow for the Highwayman. It remains to be seen whether or not we can actually hold Kingsland. Cass claims that they were not going to attack Kingsland. However, they paid the Highwayman for a route between Bearhearth and Kingsland. So it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder why they would want one. Okay, that's just my speaker responding to the Highwayman. The speaker's in Discord right now. I'm not hopping in Discord. I want to get this video off, and I received some helpful DMs from people that appreciated the first 3 videos. They enjoyed it, and I got some interesting comments about people being surprised that I would prefer to play a faction over a wild card, but I think it's really not so strange. If you are an enjoyer of collaboration and teamwork, then you would probably fit in well in a faction. Not that you couldn't enjoy a wild card, but I really enjoy the collaboration aspect. So, back to combat. Jinx is marching to Kingsland. Cobalt is marching to Nighthold. Yvonne is moving to Eastwall. And Azure City is moving to Yvonne. I just want to... I don't know. It's not really important, these guys down here. And then, critically, my airship is providing ground support to Cobalt. And Cobalt also has the commander, who has the support. So it's really going to be interesting to see what happens. Okay. Yes, so, okay. Well, that makes sense. All right, we got to go over these battles. So, firstly, combat results of Kingsland. Muster armies. The Renegade have a defense of 10. Execute orders. Azurite army of 10 arrived from Jinx. Cassian army of 20 arrived from Bearhearth. Capture cities. Plus 20 Azurite army of 10 times 2 with hijack plus 1. And then 160 Cassian army of 20 times 8. Brigadier Battlemaster plus 3. Brigadier times 2. The Hurricane, the Dauntless hijack plus 1. Yep, so pretty unlikely that Kingsland was going to be able to be held versus Cassius. We were expecting it, but it was a shame to see Highwaymen place the route between Kingsland and Bearhearth. To me, that seemed like them conceding Kingsland, but I wasn't quite ready to completely cut ties with the Highwaymen, but it's pretty bad that they did that. We definitely did not enjoy that they made that tunnel because it made us lose Kingsland. So now let's look at Nighthold. Muster armies, execute orders. An Azurite army of 10 arrived from Cobalt. Arrow army of 12 arrived from Fallowwood. Capture cities, plus 30. Azurite army of 10 times 3 from the commander times 2 from Umbra. So the Umbra provided a plus 1 to the times 2, so times 3 total. And then, yep, it was just that little bit extra from Fallowwood. And so Nighthold remains. And then Yvonne was bumped. So we will have to try to rush there with our barrister. Oh, we won't have the barrister anymore. And the aristocrat is there, so the aristocrat may end up taking Yvonne, but I have no doubt that we will push that again. And then, yes, they took Zephyr. Zephyr was known. They got Leafburn, so the border gore of Cassia being down in Leafburn is over. Let's see what they said. Forum is open. Cassian Planner was typing. It is what it is. Highwayman is typing. Let's see who's in here again. I can't remember. They own it now, so it's up to them whether or not they want to keep us in the loop. So yeah, Yvonne was bounced, and the will of the people decided that Yvonne would be neutralized. It's a shame. It is what it is. So we are down from, what were we at, 33 victory points to 26. Cassie is up to 42. Arrows is up to 39. And not beautiful, not wonderful. But we could get the city back. It's not like it's over or anything. I'm not a doomer. So we had agreements earlier where if you look around, I said stuff along the lines of, let's see, we'll go to where I think I had a pretty good argument. I'll find it. So I was talking to Cassia earlier, and I was like, "Greetings, Cass." I brought them into the forum. "Greetings, Cass. My question was whether you knew the Wanderer had just sent us a telegram offering us an alliance in exchange for a base in our land, claiming he would stop the army you're sending into Kingsland. And my statement is that we are in no way looking to pursue a death war with you, and that is a ridiculous waste of resources." That's true. That's true. I have 2 other borders to worry about. I can't fight the north through the medium of Kingsland persistently while trying to hold my eastern border versus Arrow and not putting in like nothing. I can't put nothing on the border with Rose, even though they have shown over a couple turns that they are reliable. But I can't rely on that honesty in the long term. I feel like it's better just to keep things above the board, have a minimal investment of military into the border, but not waylay it entirely, not forego it entirely, I should say. And they said, we also haven't hired Wanderer to do that. Merchant and Arrow can attest. They had been with him the only time he was in our forums. So, yeah, Cassia is by far the clear front runner now, and it's just interesting to see. I would really like to see the bottom 3 factions kind of unite against Cassia and provide them a lot of pain. We do still have good access to Kingsland through Cobalt and Jinx, but it's a pretty uncomfortable position that we are in now, being down to 1 factory, and with the Aristocrat likely going down to Yvonne very quickly. So, what else happened? Let's look at Theater. Theater was interesting. Muster armies, a renegade army of 10. Renegade army of 10 marched into Dig Site. Cassian army of 8 arrived from Peerless Peak. Okay, 16, Cassian army of 8 times 2, the Dauntless. The theater was captured by the Cassians. Dig Site. Dig Site had a really big army of 34, and they had a times 3 on there, so it comes out to 102 total. And yeah, Dig Site remains under control. So let's look at the reinforcements. I have quite a bit of dead troops, and I need to figure out how to allocate them. So I can spend 1 brass to convert either 3 wounded or 20% of my current wounded, rounded up, whichever is greater, into reserves. Don't ask how. So from what I believe, after combat takes place, you can spend brass to increase the size of your army. So the more you take part in combat, the bigger your potential army can become. So at a baseline, I think that we need to have a pretty strong force in Azure City, simply because we don't have Yvonne anymore, and we need to, no matter what, we need to push Yvonne. And then we'll probably need to put up more than token resistance in Cobalt because of the presence of Nighthold. So I guess I could always leave that, I could leave that at 10 or go maybe 11, 14. Or it actually makes more sense to go higher on Cobalt than in Azure City, since Cobalt is actually attackable from arrows. I don't consider Rose our enemies. Let's see what they said. Hello, Poppet. Cassie, I demand compensation for my agent's waste of time. You said the deal was signed and just waiting on it when it would be implemented. Seems there may be a blood feud after all. Also, the immediate betrayal of the Azurites was not what we agreed on. So Highwaymen betrayed us, guys. Highwaymen definitely betrayed us. I thought we were cooked once I saw that road come up. And they must have offered him quite a lot of Electrum, which, you know, is a shame. It is a shame. It's not insurmountable, and I'm hoping that the rest of the board sees that Cassia has flown a bit too close to the sun, and now it's our job as the sun to burn his little wax wings and send him back down to the ground. I would really like to not get involved in a blood feud with Arrow and just fight them consistently for the rest of the game, but they have been very antagonistic since the beginning, and it may be going that direction. Let's think about the positives of what came out of this. Rose, being our ally, is in a much better position now to actually project a bit of power towards Kingsland, because up until now it's kind of been the Cassia and Arrow show, looking like staring down at Kingsland as part of what has been given to us information-wise is what is a part of a duo. They've been known to be part of a duo staring down at Kingsland. And as smart as I am, as genius of a Napoleon-esque figure I simply do not have the economy or the troops to fight two people at once. And no one does. So we have to pick our battles, and it was a little bit ambitious to be able to expect to hold Kingsland, but the North has kind of shown their color, and they are willing to unite against the South. Some of the previously held alliances that we thought that we had, like with the Highwayman, he definitely showed his true colors, and we will definitely not be paying him for the Fallowwood to Nighthold road. And I mean, it's we have it in the receipts. The immediate betrayal of the Azurites was not what we agreed on. Dude, I'm going to find out who you are on Thursday and send you a politely worded curse word. That was pretty rude. So yeah, if we play our cards properly, he's not going to get a single Electrum for the rest of the game from us. I think that's kind of unforgivable. However, Spymaster has really been feeding us a lot of information. And imminent WCD. Yeah, the Spymaster has been giving us a lot of information and has been very helpful. So Arrow demoed, they destroyed the Spymaster base in Nighthold, and they built a Wanderer base there. That pissed the Spymaster off to no end, from what I was told. Now, it could have been part of a plan, part of a deal. Let's see what the Arrow Knight says. WNav? I'm not sure what that means. I'd have to look up the rules, but I don't want to change tabs while I'm recording, so I'll wait a bit and see what they said. Man of the Highway, we will discuss your compensation at the saloon you have provided us in Peerless Peaks. What you have done will make you wealthy indeed among your peers. Hi. We'll see what they say. I don't think they knew that I was here. Several people are typing. That right there, that pop-up at the bottom, that could be the summary of this turn. Apologies, Ties of Azure. We did not notice your presence. Oh my goodness. Or that was pretty awkward. They had no idea that I was still in here and they're talking about betraying me. Oh man. It might have been a misplay to speak up, but for the memes, my gosh. Speaking of memes, the Wanderer reached out to us earlier and was like, if you want me to stop the army, we can talk it through Cobalt or you can send an offer. And I said back, we don't negotiate with terrorists. Aura. I'm not above a little bit of aura farming. It is nigh impossible to someone, yeah. Yep, so basically it looks like Cassia didn't pay the Highwayman, even though the Highwayman was allegedly indebted or accrued a little bit of debt with them, or vice versa, for them to betray us. But again, I think that, it's over for them. We are not going to work with the Highwayman anymore this game, more than likely. So it's hard to speak in absolutes, but that's what it seems like. So now I am going to read my Discord a little bit and see kind of what took place. Yeah, I'm just reading my Discord. Our speaker is saying, the highwayman got us bad. He sure did. He sure did. I think this is all a show. Why close just for the short turn? Yeah, I think we are... They have us still in here. And I don't know if it's a bit of showboating, but this should basically certify that Cassia is not to be trusted. It's really time. It's past time for us to gang up against them. And it's a shame to see Arrow pushing really hard against us when they could have taken Zarek. I believe they could have taken Zarek. Yeah, it sure looks like they could have. Oh, never mind. They took Bearhearth. So they did get Bearhearth. It looks like Bearhearth... They put up a defense. But it wasn't enough. My bad, I just bumped my headphones. Alright, so I'm coming up on 20 minutes. I think I'm probably good for the night. I'm going to finish up the reinforcement process and spending my brass. Pay me what you owe me. There's nothing fair nor free about the actions you've taken. You shall soon reap the spiteful crops you have sown. I'm with Worker on this. You all flew too close to the sun. We played very above the board and honest. We did, yeah. So, this hopefully is a catalyst for a future Worker... I don't know, maybe even Worker, Rose, and Azurite alliance. It's hard to tell. Things are really still developing. And I haven't taken any time to really sit down and just kind of ponder these events. I've been kind of just commentating them in real time. So it's harder to grasp the long-term ramifications. But my biggest concern, bar none, is losing the factory at Yvonne. We need a second factory to be able to compete whatsoever with the production capabilities of the other factions. As well as we have a couple debts with wildcards. Now, we can wipe out the Highwayman debt, no problem. We're not going to pay them a thing. But like the Spy Master, we would like to keep paying the Spy Master what we owe her. And the Spy Master has been pretty forthcoming. Honestly, it feels a little bit strange that the Spy Master has been so forthcoming with us. I don't know if they've been the same way with every other faction. It's hard to imagine that, because so far the information that she has been giving us has been pretty true and verifiable. So it makes me doubt whether or not she is giving the same level of intelligence to all of the other factions. We may be experiencing a bit of favoritism from her, and if that's the case, I would probably, like to stay on her good side, because the Spy Master can go many places I can't. Just reading this. The Cassian crew they're a riot. I like them. It's all a game, and without drama it wouldn't be nearly as fun. I would say to any new players who happen to watch this and haven't played yet, or if this is your first game, just hop in. Like, apply, fill out the little paperwork. It's a time commitment, sure, but it's not that big of a time commitment. And when you form your faction, talk about your level of activity that you can reasonably have. And you can't talk to your faction too much. It's always better to err on the side of too much intelligence going around instead of too little intelligence going around and not sharing enough intel. So I think I'll probably end it on that note after looking at Kingsland one last time. You do realize, as you still like to say, the walls have ears, yes? Alright, the walls have ears, and several people are typing. That probably is a good place to end it. We will try to consolidate our holdings on day 3, and I am going to get to work with our speaker and planner about how we can try to reclaim Yvonne. Because right now, our aristocrat is in Kingsland. That is the hurricane. Let me click this. Our aristocrat is all the way in Kingsland. So we are we're 2 checkpoints away from being able to get an aristocrat to Yvonne, whereas the arrow aristocrat is 1 checkpoint away from getting Yvonne. So it's very likely they are going to take it and get the production from it this turn. But looking at the attackable surface area that they have, if I invest heavily into Cobalt, Cobalt can attack both Nighthold and Yvonne. The likelihood that they are able to hold from Kingsland, Cobalt, Peerless Peak, and Zarek simultaneously without losing any cities is quite low. So the game becomes, where do I put my troops? Do I push more on Nighthold? Do I push more on Yvonne? I think if they allow me to, I would probably rather push Nighthold. Yvonne would be nice, but it's hard to tell. We just upgraded Yvonne too, so that's double rough. So Rose could really hurt us right now if they wanted to, and we're in a bit of a tenuous position, but it's more fun that way. I would rather be in this position than Cassia's position. I would not want the entire board to be hating us, like what's happening right now in Kingsland. So you have to play the game, but you also have to play the people and play the board. Manage expectations, manage your threat level, and I would say after this turn, our threat level has dropped significantly. So, all right, I eagerly await day 3, turn 3, day, and I will see you there. Have a great night, everyone. See you next time. Okay, welcome back to day 3. Today is Tuesday morning, and yeah, things are looking pretty grim. We are in some straits, and they are dire. So the Rosemore estate has fully betrayed us. We had an agreement where they would take Zephyr, and then they would push more of their military forces toward the north, overlooking Kingsland and watching the worker border, and that was going to be the agreement that we had in exchange for giving them Zephyr. That did not happen. They militarized pretty heavily on their eastern border, which is our western border over here in Zephyr. And at first we were like, that's not too big of an issue. Then we saw this guy, the Maverick. What the Maverick does is, well, if he's the officer of an army with 10 or fewer troops, soldiers, it gets +3 support. So effectively, he has these 9 troops here. So they maxed out the amount of troops that they could bring while still taking advantage of the Maverick. There's no reason to do that unless they have designs on Azure City. So let's look at the numbers real quick and do the math. If they get +3 support and he has 1 Renown right now, that'll effectively be 4. 4 times 9, I'm not a mathematician, but that's pretty darn close to 36. And 36 overwhelms 10. I do have the commando, so that's effectively 20. So we'd be beaten by 16 power if nothing else takes place. I have the Umbra here, ready to go, ready to fire. That is in my back pocket. I would love to fire at Zephyr and take them from 9 troops down to 2 using my ground cannon. The issue is the Odyssey, the newly minted Odyssey, the airship of the Rosemore estate, I forget what it's called. Rosemore. The Rosemore estate is on their way to cover Jinx and Zephyr, and I don't know where they plan on using their shot. If I had to guess, probably Jinx to make it bare bones, naked, no troops there whatsoever, so that Oxbriar can take it. Well, we are not going to be as easy of a target as they may have thought. And here's why. So we are operating under the assumption that Jinx is going to be shot by the Odyssey, and then they are going to attack Oxbriar into Jinx. So that's 7 versus 0. However, I have the Marshal here. The Marshal has 2 support, which is not great. They have their commander here who has 4, which is a lot more than 2. But we have the the prophet here in Cobalt. And the prophet can condemn the Rose commander and reduce his renown by 1. In addition, with my marshal, I can raid a base. The highwayman has a base here in Jinx, and after his betrayal last night, the turn 2 night, which is a pretty distressing but also kind of fun video, just to show how the mindset that we were having at the time. It was grim, very bleak, very bleak. But I can take my marshal, break his base here in Jinx, power up my marshal to 3, and before the next checkpoint takes place, I am going to establish the marshal as the military governor of Jinx, and for the rest of the day, I will be accruing some defensive troops. So it will be pretty close. The next thing we were looking at is what if the airship instead fires at our airship, where there's a 1 in 4 chance that I would lose the ability to provide my ground cover. But if that takes place, the math of holding Jinx becomes even easier because I get those baseline 5 troops. And I'll definitely have enough time to accrue the other troops from the military governor in Jinx. And that won't be an issue whatsoever. So over here in Cobalt. Cobalt is where by far the brunt of our forces have been allocated because it sits at this important crossroads where it still it stares down at Kingsland, and I'm not going to write out the possibility of some kind of windfall happening in our favor and being able to snipe Kingsland, but I don't trust that Cass and Arrow are going to effectively go to war with each other. I think that what they may be trying to do is carve up little old me. So Arrow has invested pretty heavily into the defense of Bearhearth. They've set up their Baron as the governor, and the Baron, what does he do? As the governor, he collects trade. So they are not going to be getting any more troops in Bearhearth this turn, but that's kind of okay because they are not in a whole lot of imminent danger. I guess, theoretically... Oh, by the way, Cass just built a second airship, the Goliath, which brings them up to the Dauntless and the Goliath. So that is pretty powerful. They also are, I think they might be allied with the Aeronauts, but maybe it's the workers that are allied with the Aeronaut now. But regardless, they are converging on this area right around here between Digsite, Quorum, and I think the big fight is going to be between Digsite and Quorum. I don't think the Quixotic, however you say that Q word, I don't think that has fired yet. So it should be able to fire at something. But if the 2 Cass airships have not yet fired, they can destroy up to 14 ground troops. That's a huge swing. 2 airships is a huge swing. But back to our neck of the woods. It is pretty tough over here. And last night I was talking about how we need to LARP as a heavyweight boxer. We can throw about 1 good punch per round right now, and we need that punch to land solidly. So this will come in the form of 100%. We need to go for Nighthold or Yvonne. We cannot survive sitting on 1 factory, and a poorly defended one at that. That cannot be allowed to stand. So we have to push somewhere. Between the 2 of them, it's hard to tell which one would be better, but I think between the 2 of them, Yvonne would be better to take first. We spent a round upgrading Yvonne, so we know that that's been upgraded. I don't remember if in times past Nighthold was upgraded. I'll have to go back and check my videos. And I don't know if there's a way to tell just by hovering over the city. Yeah, I can't recall. But that's not super important. What is important is trying to reestablish ourselves with an economy. Our planner has so few cities to choose from, it's not even funny. Our speaker has very little ammunition with which to make deals, make trades, because we are we were kind of, slapped around by the whole table. We received a lot of gut punches and sucker punches, and we were tanking the entire brunt of all of the direct combat wildcard's powers. So we are very much on the back foot, and we're hoping that the threat level reduction will, instead of galvanizing support against us, will let the bigger players in the game start to look at each other and start worrying about each other and not the well-defended tiny little faction in the bottom right. So again, huge amounts of victory points are tied up in these monuments nearby us. And I'm not ruling out that those can be retaken. I'm absolutely not ruling that out. But it is going to be a tough road forward. The other thing, if I take Zephyr, if I shoot Zephyr to prevent them from taking Azure City, I think I can probably push my commando with my 10 troops towards Zephyr. There's a possibility that tonight, when combat takes place, I actually take back Zephyr, but I don't see how I wouldn't. Because my commando would have first strike. He would get there first, and he would beat the army of 2 in Zephyr, and then he has 5 reinforcing from Roseward without a commander. I don't know if the commander would help the army that's approaching from there once they arrive, or if the army has to have a departing military agent backing them for that ability to kick in when the army does battle. I'll have to read the rules again. I know that's my mantra, but again, I'm a noob. This is my first time playing. This is day 3, and I'm trying to, show what it's like for the people down in the trenches. I don't have any fancy teleportation. I don't have any fancy awesome wildcard abilities. It's me, my speaker, my planner, and we are holding on to each other for dear life. I had a quote last night in the Discord. I said, "We're looking for stardust in a coal mine." And if that doesn't sum up the events of yesterday, I don't know what does. We are hoping for a miracle, and we're trying to set ourselves up for one just by having a dense coalition of forces. Not really a coalition, but just this center of gravity that is holding our faction together here in Cobalt. This kind of domineering force in this portion of the map. The only thing that could stand up to it is the power of wildcards. The Renegade is hanging out over here, and she has 6 Renown. So when she spawns her army of 10, that immediately becomes a strength 60 army, a power 60 army. Let's see what's going on with the Worker Rebellion. We cannot open a forum there. Our marshal is governor. You have a command, are you sure? I can't guarantee you pay me. And I've already been scammed once. The Renegade is worried about us scamming them. They ruined our lives yesterday. Man, that was really rough. I'm going to let the speaker respond on our behalf. I don't want to undermine the work that our speaker is doing. I'm here for the engines of war and determining who dies and trying to minimize our losses militarily. But what is absolutely true is if the Renegade marches south to Yvonne, there's nothing we can do. Azure City will be taken. There's no possible way we could hold on to it. So yeah, if the wildcards decide that Arrows are going to win, or Cass is going to win, then that's simply the faction that wins. So we are hoping that Cass and Arrow will turn toward each other. And I don't know why they wouldn't. Kingsland is very vulnerable right now. And if we look at where the airship is going, it's kind of hanging back here. There to there or so is not a long trip. That's not a long trip at all. And I know they're kind of pulling back their airship, but I think that might be purely for diplomacy, because look at their airship. There's a Cassia representative in their airship. And yeah, this is getting really close. I'm going to be watching the progression of the Odyssey towards our airspace. And as soon as it gets close and they prove that they are willing to move their ship into range to fire at our ship, that is when I'm going to take the shot with the Umbra and destroy the forces at Zephyr. So it comes down to whether or not the Renegade chooses to go to Yvonne, raise an army, and march on Azure City. If that takes place, there's nothing we can do. We're cooked, we're chefed, we're sautéed, we're minced, we're garlicked. But if that doesn't happen, we might be able to get Zephyr. Zephyr would have a huge swing of 12 points total between us and Rose, because they would go down by 6, we would go up by 6. So what would that look like? We'd be at 32, and they would be at 37. So we'd be 5 points behind them instead of the current massive gap that exists. Cass is still in first place with Arrow right behind, and I wouldn't be surprised if Arrow and Rose have a deal going on right now, because the speaker is over here in Siren Song. I would not be surprised if they have a deal to simply knock us out of the game and then, take bites at our corpse and just divide us up between them. So it's going to be very difficult to survive that. And we've tried to open up conversations with the workers about what Rose is doing, but they have not been very receptive. And I think quite literally it's insane for workers to not be putting pressure on Rose, since Rose was in such a weak state for a long time. Now Rose, again, was our ally day 1 and day 2, but this just popped up out of the woodwork this morning, and we are scrambling to find some golden path forward that we can step on. But it's like being in a minefield, and very, very few actions that we can take right now are clear cut and don't come with significant negatives to our situation. Like, I would love to fire right now on Zephyr, but what if the Odyssey turns around and goes towards, something else? We tried talking to Arrows about supporting a push on Kingsland and then giving them Kingsland. Like, we would skirmish Kingsland, they could secure Kingsland, and we could do it in an alliance. And, they would be able to absolutely take Kingsland and get Arrow off of us for a turn. But even then, that fully concedes Yvonne for the rest of the turn and Nighthold for the rest of the turn, and we can't say that we're willing to make that deal. They also hadn't responded. So yeah, it's an interesting development, and I appreciate that this is happening game 1 for me, because I think that this has been a great teaching experience so far. And I'm the student. The rest of the players around this table are the freaking teachers. I would not be surprised if I'm getting destroyed by a bunch of vets. But if it turns out that they're also a bunch of first-time players, then, that's kind of humbling. And it's a good... It's like a masterclass on how not to play Commander if it comes out that, it was a bunch of first-time players that destroyed me. So I'll have to reevaluate how I play, and I will also have to reevaluate how I communicate with the team, and prioritizing certain alliances, understanding the power and the ramifications of allowing something like the Firebrand to go through, or turn 1 alliances with the Renegade, because the Renegade is really just such a powerful, powerful wild card. But it was pretty uncomfortable trying to survive the assault from about 10 players yesterday. That was hard, and I think that I'll probably have to reach out to some of the vets after this game is over and ask politely if they will go over my videos with me and try to point out the key critical errors that I made, because obviously at no point in this game will you ever have an overwhelming amount of certainty in what's going on. But I do think that we can reduce the amount of misplays, even if they're micro misplays, like mispositioning an airship, which moves in real time. Those things matter, and they can have knock-on effects that you don't see the ramifications of until, a day or two later. A weakness now can be the crack that allows two previous enemies, like Rose and Arrow, to team up against you, sitting weakly in the middle. So yeah, I'm definitely going to reach out to kind of the more experienced, wiser players in the Discord and see what the path forward is for my part in factions. Maybe next game I'll try to pivot and play a wild card just for fun, just to see what that side of the house is like. But I still think that I'm probably going to enjoy playing a faction significantly more than I would enjoy playing a wild card. And with the amount of people that are so eager and willing to only play wild cards, it's not a bad thing if I end up not being able to get priority for a wild card. So, all right, I don't want to ramble too long. Thanks for listening. I hope you tune in for the night episode. And I think I know I say it every time, but a lot of things are happening. And that's because a lot of things happen in this game. It's a complex web of deceit and lost opportunities, miscalculations, uncertainty, and surprise. And that's what makes it so intriguing and attractive to play. So, my name has been Jeddick. Your name has been chat and viewers. I'll see you next time. I don't know what I'm saying. Bye. So breaking my form on these updates, I'm actually doing kind of a midday update. We're still a couple checkpoints from combat, but things have become much more dire. So the Odyssey is still rushing us, and now we just found that the Wayfarer is coming down to Yvonne. My guess of what's going to happen is the Odyssey and the Wayfarer will both double gun Cobalt, and Cobalt will get minus 14 troops from oh no. We're so cooked. Oh no. I gotta screenshot this right now and send it in Discord. Okay. So that's less than stellar. The aeronaut's coming down too, and the worker rebellion is with them. So we have quite literally every faction in the game coming down. Arrow is working with Cassia, the aeronaut, the Wanderer. They're dropping their stuff down here. Over here in Eastwall, Arrow is talking with the Renegade, likely talking about spawning an army and walking south into Azure City. Worker is sitting with the aeronaut on their way down here to provide fire support against Cobalt. I think they're probably going to triple gun Cobalt down to one troop, and then Nighthold is going to walk south into Cobalt and just take it 5-on-1. And then we have little hope of surviving. We unfortunately, if we didn't collect resources from Cobalt, and if we had one more steel, and we bid 7 lux up here in the agent bidding, I'm sure we could have cut a deal for 1 steel with the 7 lux, the 7 luxury goods. If we had one more steel, we could have done fortification and made Cobalt immune to the guns of the airships. But as it is now, I think this may be the death knell ringing in our ears. Difficult situation. I don't know exactly what I should have done and when to prevent all 4 factions kind of ganging up on us. Hard to manage, hard to deal with. I appreciate the activity that our speaker has had. Speaker's been putting in a lot of time trying to manage the situation, reach out to people. But with the Highwayman betrayal, the spy betrayal, the spy was supposed to sleep the commander so that the commander couldn't go from Oxbriar into Jinx, which is being covered by the pink ship right now. Really rough, really rough. I hope that some people can gain enjoyment from seeing the suffering that we are enduring. But endure, we will not. I think we are chefed. It's a shame to see the forces of 4 factions kind of arrayed against us. But that's how Strife goes, I guess. What a welcome to the community. Um, definitely definitely cutthroat, definitely missed opportunities, definitely misplays. Like honestly, the Cobalt misplay, not having the fortification, that's pretty rough. Um, that we could have seen, that coming. But we do have the ability to fortify Azure City, so we probably will do that. Um, and then put every single one of our troops on Azure City next turn, and we might be able to push out day 4 and take 1 or 2 cities. Well, 1 city, since each army, when it moves, the entirety of that army moves. So if they do take Cobalt, I don't know if they can take Jinx, because it doesn't have, maybe if Kingsland and Oxbriar move together and they're allied, or the Barbarian goes with Rose. I have seen them talking in there. But hard to tell. This may be it. This may be it. So thanks for listening to me yap, and I will be back again for the nighttime turn. Peace. All right, I had to do a jump cut because I unironically doxed myself at the end of the previous recording, so I kind of had to start over. Okay, so combat turn 3. We lost Jinx. But let me describe the array of forces set against us. Aeronaut comes in, flies all the way over from like the theater type area, spends hours flying over to us, and claims that he wants to do a quick service for us, and we'll pay him some Electrum. Spoiler alert, we are not going to be paying him any Electrum. So I can clearly see that there's an aeronaut representative in the Arrows, the faction, Arrows of Artemis, airship. So this silly goose, the aeronaut, has someone on their airship. He hops over to mine to talk and open up a forum. And I go, greetings, these are dark, perilous times. And he says, I can do ally and shot for 3 Electrum in total if that works. And in Discord, we're like, hell no, that's so expensive. We have 0. We can't be making deals for 3. Has he not noticed that we have 1 factory? And so I'm like, the offered price is just too much. I was much more diplomatic first. We appreciate the offer, but we have ran our coffers dry, fending off 10 players. Perhaps in the future, should the Azurite see the light of dawn. So why am I here? The offered price of 3 is simply too much. So am I being paid for the night hold shot tomorrow at least? Apologies for the wait. Yes, I was in discussions with my partners. The shot on night hold will be paid for. Hint, it won't be. It won't be. We know that you are working with the enemy, and we're not going to pay you. So I decided to float the idea of shooting Oxbriar, simply because if he's over here, and I know that he's talking with the Arrows and Cassia over here, and the aeronaut just came from the theater, well then there's this whole triangle of communications going on that we are not involved in, this sharing of intelligence, and everyone has a date to the prom except us. So we come to the conclusion that the best thing we can do is simply to try to gauge his reactions about making different requests, and see if we can kind of glean a little bit of information of what's going on. Well, he was very helpful to that end, because if I go through the chat logs, I go, what about 2 Electrum for a shot on Oxbriar, which is down here just behind my mouse? It would have to happen soon before combat. And he sends messages to the wrong forum. Now they want me to shoot Oxbriar, which is 1.5 hours away. And all I say is, this is the Umbra, not the Wayfarer. And he literally thinks that he can just play it off and be like, oh, I needed to get that out of my system. Oh, I just needed to get this out of my system. And not gonna lie, I have been talking to other people now. He had to throw in that little addendum at the end of his sentence, now, as if I didn't see for hours that he was with the Arrow and Cass on the Arrows of Artemis airship, the Wayfarer. Again, just right past my mouse. Do you not realize how much I wanted to do this, but you shot me in the foot? How so? We didn't cancel the deal. But you ran your blimp away, so I could not talk to you. Yeah, I had to set up my blimp in a defensive position. And it freaking worked. The aeronaut says, like, I'm still going to do Nighthold, no worries. But I've been talking to Arrows, because at this rate, I don't know, Azur. Yeah, again, you can say that as much as you want, but you've been talking for hours with the Arrows and Cass. We understand that it's normal for wildcards to be in contact with many factions. We don't begrudge you for that. Our chief goal is exploiting the weak Arrow border, which probably won't happen again. This was a crucial piece of information. And right after I said this, let's look at the timestamps. 5:31 p.m. Okay, 5:31 p.m. We go to the Wayfarer. We scroll up. Let's look for activity around 5:31 p.m. Boom, 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 boom. 5 messages in 3 minutes after I tell them that I'm looking to exploit the weakened Arrow border. So I'm going to get back to it, but we call that subliminal messaging. It's not even subliminal, it's just straight up messaging. I'll do the Nighthold shot and help you guys out. I'll help you out. It costs me so much. I'm the aeronaut. It costs me so much to do a shot. Add 0.2E and I'll throw in an alliance as well. Hint, he would not have. He would not have. Just, if you want more than Nighthold, use the rest of the 2- message to communicate that. I apologize for the lack of unprofessional communication there. Again, he is trying to operate under the paradigm that I didn't know that he was attempting to send a message to a different faction, and he was instead just crashing out, rolling his face against the keyboard in my airship, the Umbra. I'm not that dumb. I might be dumb, but I'm not chief dumb. We wait with bated breath. I misspelled baited there. Bated breath is B-A-T-E-D. Thought you should know. To see the results of this bloody night. All right, job is done. Good luck tonight. Thank you, Godspeed. So he did shoot Nighthold. He did. However, after he shot Nighthold, wouldn't you know it, the Renegade that was hanging out on top of the Wayfarer, the Arrow of Artemis's airship, hops off and spawns an army in Nighthold. And then they also spawn a Renegade army in Yvonne. And it was only 2 this time, right? I don't think they spawned another one. Oh, no, they spawned another one. Yeah, that's right. They double shot Jinx. Arrows and the Arrows of Artemis. I can't say Arrow because the Aeronaut versus the Arrows of Artemis. So I'll just say the Arrows of Artemis and the Rose, they both double shot Jinx and they knocked out all of our defensive troops on Jinx. And the way the Renegade works is ambush, travel to any city with no army. Well, we didn't have an army anymore on Jinx because they just double shot. We had like 13 troops or something on there. They double shot with airships and boom, no army. And then they ambushed and generated an army on Jinx. So not a whole lot we could do there. Again, just too many forces arrayed against us. And then Rose and the Renegade working together took Jinx. Cobalt. Cobalt was very, very interesting. I'm going to lay the scene first. I'm going to prepare the scene, and then I will go over the results of the combat in Cobalt. Firstly, I already mentioned that the Renegade was in Nighthold, and the Renegade was in Yvonne. Nighthold had no Arrows of Artemis troops on it because of the Aeronaut shooting Nighthold. But that was part of their plan. They knew that the Aeronaut would basically be getting free money from us, and it would end up being ineffectual because the plan amongst that alliance the entire time was for the Aeronaut to fire at the troops in Nighthold, Arrow of Artemis's troops in Nighthold, because it wouldn't cost them anything, because they already knew from their forums that the Renegade would simply spawn an army in Nighthold and it wouldn't be a problem. And remember, the renegade needs to have no army in a city. They can't have an army in the city for them to use their ambush ability. So they thought that they were hoodwinking us, where I was actually going to pay them Electrum to take advantage of the exact ability on the renegade that they wanted to take advantage of in the first place. So I'm getting ahead of that and just cutting it off by not paying the aeronaut. But remember that I mentioned that I was looking to take advantage of the weak arrow border, the weak Arrows of Artemis border. I implanted that. He passed it to his alliance. And now I will go over the results of Cobalt. Muster armies. Azurite army of 22. We had 22 troops on there. Execute orders. The Renegade army of 10 arrived from Nighthold. Shocker. She had a bounce. So that was the real Renegade in Nighthold. Azurite army of 22 had their orders canceled by the invading army. Azurite army of 10 arrived from Fort Azure City. Wait. So you're telling me the Azurite army from Fort Azure, by the way, I turned Azure City into a fort. You're telling me the entire army that was protecting Fort Azure City, when it's being stared down at by a 10-size renegade army with, how much? With 6 renown. So that's effectively 60 power of her troops against 10 sitting in Azure City. They arrived? They arrived in Cobalt? Well, yes, I had guessed, and I guessed properly, that they would not send troops into Azure City, because who in the hell would leave their fort that's also their capital empty? Well, I'm that guy. I leave Fort Azure City completely empty, and I bring the 10 troops from there to Cobalt, and I reinforce Cobalt before the battle takes place. So now we look at the numbers. Capture cities. Boom. We have plus 30 from the Azurite army of 10 with a ×3 plus the Umbra providing air support. And then you had, -70, the Renegade army of 10 gaining additional benefits from the Odyssey. And man, the Renegade really had so much support on that Renegade. Really scary. But it worked out. Looking at it, I could have survived even if I didn't bring the troops from Fort Azure. But I was fully expecting Kingsland to send their 5 troops to Cobalt, simply to take part in the take part in the battle. For reference, Kingsland had 5 troops on it. I believe Bearhearth had 31. And, workers, completely ineffectual. Guys, I don't know why you didn't attack Kingsland. Oh, that's right, because I think Rose had Leaf Burn, and then... Yeah, Rose had Leaf Burn, Workers took Leaf Burn, and lost Vanaheim to the theater. So Cass took Vanaheim, Workers took Leaf Burn, and Rose lost Leaf Burn. So there was some shenanigans going on over there. Kind of convoluted. But again, Cass, the point leader, should not be able to get away with just maintaining 5 troops on Kingsland. That should be illegal. That should actually be illegal. Especially since the Firebrand was in the theater and not on Kingsland. So the Firebrand also didn't get to attack because the army that was sitting in Vanaheim simply left. Yeah, Muster armies, Worker army of 25, Cassian army of 10 arrived from the theater, and the Worker army of 25 ×3 marched to Leafburn. So the Firebrand didn't get to attack, so that cuts their end of game power in half, because the Firebrand doubles their support every time they are involved in combat, even above the cap of 9, which is pretty crazy. So we barely hung on to our cities. We did lose Jinx, but looking at the forces that were arrayed against us, losing Jinx after getting shelled twice and having so much direct combat power in the form of wildcards and 2 factions bearing down on us. Only losing Jinx is pretty incredible. And the forward view into what is going to happen tomorrow and Thursday is something like we are probably going to attack Yvonne tomorrow with Fort Azure City. It's too dangerous for us to spread out our troops to Cobalt because there's just too many airships around. You know, if I put 14 troops out in Cobalt, they get shot down immediately by the Hurricane and the Wayfarer. I can't risk it. So I have to put all my troops in Fort Azure City because forts, again, are immune to the air cannon. So I think tomorrow we're probably going to take Yvonne and get additional support, or additional renown, rather, on my commander. My commander's up to 6, which is really awesome. Will be at 7 after tomorrow if I take part in combat. And I got the Loyalist, which really helped. The commander has +2 renown, so just not including my airship, I have a 6x37 sized army, which is strong enough to take out any city in the game right now. And turn 5, I should have a 7 power commander to be able to take Zephyr. Zephyr is worth 6 victory points right now. Next turn it will be 8. The turn after it will be 10. So remember those two numbers. By turn 5, it will be 10. So if we were to take Zephyr from Rose, there would be a 20-point swing because we would get a +10, they would get a -10. So let's look at what that would do for us. We're at 32 victory points right now. If we shot up to 42, and they shot down to, 35, we would no longer be in last place, and we would end this game in 4th place, and Rose, our day 1 allies, who betrayed us in our time of need, would end the game with Justice on the Azurite side, and Rose at the very bottom of the pack, where they deserve to be. That, we hope, is what is going to take place. At this point, we are fighting to not be at the bottom of the pack, and we are looking to scrounge any victory points that we can. So I think that's a pretty good overview of what happened, and I appreciate everyone who ends up watching this. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I hope the audio quality is better than it has been in previous videos. I did spend some real mind effort on trying to work on my audio quality, and I hope that reflects a little bit compared to the earlier videos. So again, have a great night. Thanks for checking it out, and see you tomorrow. All right, welcome to the end of day 4. We have combat upon us in a mere 19 minutes, and I wanted to quickly go over the events of day 4. So I think that this may be the most tenuous position we've had so far, simply because Cobalt is completely open. It's been laid bare to the world, and we think right now that there's about a 60% chance that Yvonne will not attack Cobalt. We expect that Jinx is likely to attack Cobalt. Jinx totally could, and there's not a whole lot of reasons for them not to. Let's see what this guy says. We bid 6 courier. Oh, we're just telling them that we're going to bid on the courier. We're not going to. We're bidding 1 on courier, but we got to spread the misinformation where we can. So right now the goal is to steal Azure City, or to steal Zephyr with Azure City, and I want to quickly go over the forces involved. Obviously, we have 49 troops on Azure City. We also have our commander providing a +6 renown, and we have the Umbra, who has been shot. We've had our siege cannon disabled. So that is the ability that allows us to fire at cities to remove 7 defenders. So all in all, we have 7 supports applied to the forces of Fort Azure City. And if you multiply those numbers out, 7 times 49, you get to 343. I'm not sponsored by 343, nor do I expect to be in the future for the mass amounts of wealth that I will be accruing from this video. But I'm not against it. 343, reach out, man. I have 50 followers on Twitch. I'm kind of huge. So Zephyr is likely to fall. Zephyr's ours, at least. And that's worth 6 victory points. So Rose will go down to 39. We would jump from 33 to 39, so we'd be equal to Rose. If they capture Cobalt, that's only worth 2. So we'd go down from 39 to 37. They would go from 39 to 41. So that's not too terrible. If they did capture Cobalt, we would likely be able to retake it on turn 5 with Azure City, since we couldn't reach it from Zephyr. But we don't know for sure that they are going to attack Cobalt, although it would kind of be the smart thing to do because there's clearly not enough to defend. Let's talk about the journey of the Umbra that took place today. So the Umbra started off around here, actually, at the turn of today. The Umbra went all the way up here and was part of a Air Force campaign that the Arrows kind of hired us for. We were looking for like anyone to reach out a hand with any form of kindness at all. And we kind of brokered a deal between the merchant and the Arrows and us, where we would get some poverty luxuries. That's why we're up to 5. We actually are up to 6, but like I said, we've bid 1 on the courier. We have 5 in the bank, and we promised the Arrows that we would buy the courier with all 6, and then we would give them half of the gains from the courier. So what the Arrows are expecting to receive from the industrial agent is, this courier, is they're expecting to get 2 capital, 2 steel, 2 brass. Or some amount, that's 9 resources total. They're expecting to get between 4 and 6. And then we would get to keep the rest. So they believe that we are, sorry, bumping my desk. They believe that we are going to go all in on that courier and split the profits with them down the middle while they bid on something else. However, we are not doing that. There is a turn 5 special agent called the Usurper, I think it is, and he gives you 3 renown if you do not control Kingsland. And we are really kind of dancing on the knife's edge. But remember how I was talking about how Jinx would be, if the Jinx forces take Cobalt, Rose will be 1 victory point ahead of us. If we got the 3 renown bonus from not having Kingsland and also winning the Usurper, we would be ahead of Rose. In addition, if we, each turn, we get to, collect resources on monuments, and each time you do so, you get 2 victory points. If we have 2 monuments, we go up by 4. If they have 2 monuments, Siren Song and Cobalt, they also go up by 4. But they have to be able to hold it. They have to be able to hold it. And we were able to cut a deal for 3 brass earlier in the day. Lychee and steel, also from the merchant. And so we are putting all of that brass into reinforcements after the combat that takes place in 14 minutes. So it's really getting close, and I can't wait to see what happens. Okay. So they are expecting to receive that. I was saying Arrows earlier, my bad. I think we cut that deal with the workers. We let them know that we're going to be giving them the capital, the brass, all of that stuff. I think they're the ones that gave us the luxuries. Merchant gave us a couple. I don't remember what happened with the worker. I wasn't on kind of a whole lot today. Unfortunately, I had to let my speaker and planner do most of the heavy lifting. But man, this has been such an experience so far. And there have been few times in my life where I have had so much fun losing. But we'll see tomorrow whether or not we end up taking the last place. I need to show you this really great telegram that we got from the aeronaut. I should have mentioned earlier, when the Umbra was going up north towards Kingsland to join this temporary coalition force of 4 airships against the Cass's 3 airships and the aeronaut right here, the Hurricane. I was up here. I was on my way to the cluster of Arrows of Artemis airships right about here. And the Hurricane from the aeronaut was coming up here, and then I happened to remote into my desktop and check what the aeronaut was doing, just because previously I had seen that we were both traveling north. And the aeronaut had a direct crash course into the center of our ship, just like that. Except he was here and we were here. So he was clearly on his way, like direct collision course with our ship. And I'm like, hell no, I'm not going to just stand there and take it. So I shot them and I disabled their deck guns. So it became a kind of true 3v3 in the air with no other injuries. They've just kind of been standing off. They are hesitant to throw their 3 airships at each other because, you know, turn 5 is tomorrow. You don't have a lot of time to do repairs or anything like that. I would respond, but we have no dashes. Thank you, Worker Rebellion, for the kind words. Good luck to you as well. I hope you end up with a lower score than we do. But that's not unique to you. That goes for all factions. So yeah, this is a really kind of knife's edge dance. And I talked it over at length with my team in Discord, and we came to the conclusion, take a sip of coffee there. We came to the conclusion we are all right with the risk calculation of allowing Yvonne to take Fort Azure City. Because at least if we do something proactive this way, there's a chance, there's this glimmering golden thread that exists that we can grab onto and kind of unravel, and we have a chance of not being last place. If we sit passively, idly in Fort Azure, we will not be able to make anything of the faction, and we roll over quietly and die without introducing any new complexities to the other factions to have to consider. That's not our style. At the very least, we will bury our enemies' flags, their banners, their drummer boys. We will bury them in our bodies before we just give up and don't do anything. I know I was kind of doomer last video, but oh my goodness. I can't believe we made it this far. I can't believe we have Cobalt. Just having Cobalt doubles the amount of cities that the other factions have to consider when it comes to attack vectors and attacking us. So if we hold on to Cobalt, I don't think that's going to happen, but that golden thread becomes a lot easier to tug on. But I think that's about it. I will make another little video with the magic of editing. We'll jump about 10 minutes into the future, and I will show the fallout. Anything I'm missing? We used our prophet and condemned the Rose commander. Not only is he exhausted, but he's been condemned twice now, and he's at a little pathetic 2 Renown on turn 4. Meanwhile, the Gigachad Azurite commander with 6 Renown mogs him. Goliath fired upon dig site. Yeah, dig site got hit. Caterwall fired upon the theater. I can't see. Looks like there's no troops on theater. Hurricane fired on dig site twice. And the Hellenic fired upon the Grand Mill. So I don't know what is happening over here. But it doesn't look like the Odyssey fired yet, which is pretty interesting. Maybe they fire at Leafburn and they take Leafburn. That would be interesting. I hope Jinx goes for Leafburn instead of Cobalt to try to cause more damage to the workers. But yeah, workers are also struggling this game just like us. At the very least, putting all this pressure on Rose gives the workers a little bit of room to breathe, because it forces Rose to invest heavily on their eastern border, which obviously they have, 37 troops over here. Imagine the forces they could array against the Workers' Union if they didn't have to put 37 troops over here. So, not worried about the Zephyr fight whatsoever. My worries are entirely on Fort Azure City and Cobalt. So, all right. Yep, with the magic of editing, I will catch you up in about 8 minutes. See you later. Bye. All right, welcome back to the end of turn 4 combat. I know I said it would be only a couple minutes, but it's actually like an hour and a half later. I was hanging out in Discord with a bunch of the other players, spectators, and Ryan himself. And Ryan just had a rule that we couldn't We couldn't dox ourselves. We couldn't release our actual identities until tomorrow. So we didn't, and instead we just talked and we had a good time kind of going over what took place. Namely, we took Zephyr. We knew we were going to. 343 versus 37 is quite a commanding difference. And then the arithmetic of how we come out with a decent score becomes pretty complicated. Before I get into it, let's go over the standings. Azurites at 45 victory points. Cassia Verity et al. 51 points, and I think that they're in second place. Cassia's in second place. Arrows of Artemis are in first place with 56. So that's pretty good, them being at 56. Congrats to them. I hope they don't win, though. I hope someone else wins. Arrows have been a thorn in our side, or maybe an arrow in our back this whole time. Rose is at 50, and we have plans for Rose. We have bad plans for Rose. Workers are at 35. They are in the position that we were a couple turns ago. That's pretty rough for them. I should say last turn. Day 3 was brutal. And Cassia again at 51. So we were talking to the arrows in Bearhearth, and we had this idea that they back off of Yvonne. They give us Yvonne. We take it with the aristocrat, and they're talking about sponsoring sponsoring us as the new owners of Kingsland. And they actually said this. They truly said that they would support us taking Kingsland. Let me find where. We should have a payout from letting Rose take Kingsland. We would support you in a bid for Kingsland. And I responded, truly? If only to take it away from Rose and focus on other fronts. So focusing on other fronts. If they want to let us have Kingsland, let's think about the implications. The implication is that Kingsland is likely to be assaulted by Cass. Based off of what they were just talking about, they expect us to go for Kingsland. And they expect Rose to probably invest pretty decently militarily into holding Kingsland. I don't know if Rose expects to be able to hold Kingsland. If I were them, I would think not. But if I could get into their head for a moment, why would they be willing to give up a 8-point city in exchange for, I don't know, 5 points? I guess that'd be 7 tomorrow. This is worth 3. So maybe their entire strategy hinges on taking Zarek from Cass. And they're expecting that maybe we could take it from or maybe we could take Kingsland and prevent Cass from getting it. If that were to happen, then yeah, clearly Arrows would just win. But we don't necessarily want to help Arrows like that. We want to hurt Rose. We're in a better position to hurt Rose than we are to help Arrows. So what we cooked up was this troop distribution model, 25 in Zephyr, which is newly acquired. It's worth 8 victory points. Next turn, it will be worth 10 victory points. Okay, so right now this is equal in value to Kingsland. Crazy, and much harder to assault. So we put the biggest investment of troops into Zephyr, second biggest investment into Cobalt, obvious reasons. It's a good launch point, and it touches many other cities. But it's only worth 2. Next turn it will be worth 4. Azure City itself is worth 4, and next turn it will be worth 6. So here's our chief concern is whether or not we believe that they will follow through with their terms. They'll leave Yvonne and leave it neutral, allow our aristocrat to go into Yvonne. If that happens, I think we're golden. I think we actually end up in a pretty decent spot at the end of the game. So here's the plan. I attack Roseward with Zephyr troops, and I attack Jinx with Cobalt. And you might be thinking, well, that's, you know, 2 cities worth 2. So 4 total, but that's an 8-point swing because a -4 to Rose is a +4 to us. So if we go from 45, we get a +4 to 49, and Rose is at a 50, and they get a -4 down to 46, we're now beating Rose. And that's not including the Renown that we would get on my commander. That's not including the Renown that I would get on my Marshal, because my Marshal is likely to lead the forces in Cobalt. Kind of depends on tomorrow. Based off of their troop distribution, that's how I'll know where to set my commander and where to set my Marshal. I'll need my commander at my harder battle, because she's got the 7 Renown, which is awesome. So that's the thing. That's the hard part. The good part is that Rose's military commanders are terrible. Really terrible. They've got the Sentinel that's worth 1. I've broken their commander a couple times now. I've denounced him with the Prophet. He's down to 2. Their Marshal is their only decent one. And where is he at? Maybe over here? I'm not sure where their Marshal is. It doesn't matter, but that's probably their only decent one. They have the Maverick over here. He's worth 1. Trash. Completely trash. He's only a little bit scary if he has an army of 10 or fewer, because then he goes from 1 to 4 support. But that's not... Our armies are much too large to consider that as a real threat. So that's the plan. And I don't think that we will end up as number 1 tomorrow. But if we take Jinx and Roseward, that's +4 points for us. And we will get to collect victory points from Cobalt, Zephyr, and Azure City. So all in all, if we get those 10 points tomorrow, we'd be sitting at 55, not including any renown that we gain from agents tomorrow. So 55 at a baseline right now would put us in 2nd place, just behind Arrows. And we may be catching Arrows really off guard. They probably don't expect that we agreed to this in Bearhearth and now we immediately turn our backs on them. But, I mean, hey, that's Strife. So this has been super fun. Can't wait to do the follow-through video tomorrow. I plan on recording the end state of the Discord channel that we're all in when we finally go mask off and we reveal our identities and we immediately start the trash talk. So can't wait for that, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, and welcome back to the very, very last video of my noob perspective, because as of now, I am no longer a noob. I am, according to the Discord, according to my roles on the Discord, I am now a veteran. I have completed my first game of Days Without Strife. And here's the end results. We got a very respectable final score of 61 points. Workers Union got 56. They came in 4th place. Arrows of Artemis came in 2nd place with 64 points. Rosemore Estate, our enemies, ended at 41 points, the bottom of the pack, in no small part due to our actions, and we take pride in that, which leaves the winner of the August US game being Cassia Verity et al. So congratulations to the Cass players. They played their heart out, and we will quickly go over some of the subterfuge that took place in the last battle, so to speak. Arrow ended up not betraying us, and we broke our alliance with them in the last minutes before combat because we were expecting, when we pushed Cobalt to Kingsland, we were expecting Nighthold or Jinx to just walk in and take Cobalt, which is not an insignificant amount of renown. 4 renown is definitely something. You want to hold on to that. So the thought process was, well, we'll just reinforce with Azure City. So Azure City marched to... Oh, they didn't. They marched to Yvonne. I guess we... Oh, that's right, because we ended up deciding not to push Cobalt. If we had pushed Cobalt, we were thinking we'll just use the Fort Azure City troops to walk to Cobalt with the first strike... what's his name? I guess he... I thought I had a military leader down there. Oh, I did. Okay. Yeah. Azurite army of 5 arrived from Fort Azure City. I'm going crazy. Yeah, so the commando did come from Azurite City. We reinforced Fort Yvonne because we ended up not pushing Cobalt. Had we pushed Cobalt, we would have reinforced it with Azure City forces. Zephyr was never going to move because Zephyr was a full 9 Renown. And why would we take Roseward when there's a chance that Jinx could walk in and take a 9 Renown city for free? And why would we take Jinx with our Zephyr forces when there's a chance that Roseward could just come in and take Zephyr? So the safest, highest percentage success chance play was to just hold Zephyr and look at the opportunities on the rest of the front, which were few. However, we think that had we pushed Cobalt into Kingsland, into this absolute mess, under the alliance of the Arrows, with our full with our full army of in Cobalt, with our 7 power commander, we might have actually been able to take Kingsland. But Arrow was planning on getting a alliance with everyone because they have this dude in the back here. I don't remember what he's called. We'll look in the bidding. The Arrows won the Ambassador, so he's called the Ambassador. Here he is. This guy gets 2 renown for each faction alliance you have at the end of the game. So they had alliances with the 3 other factions, and they wanted to get an alliance with us. We broke that alliance right at the end of the game because of the aforementioned reasons surrounding sniping Cobalt or Zephyr away from us. We were also expecting Eastwall to maybe attack Fort Yvonne, which is why we had to send the Fort Azure City forces to Yvonne. But had we taken Kingsland, let's do a couple bits of calculus. Not really calculus, but we would have gotten 9 more. They would have lost 9. So we'd be sitting at 70. They'd be sitting at 64. So we would have won had we taken Kings. But it's hard to tell, man. It's really, really hard to tell. There's so many gaps in your armor that you open up when you make an aggressive thrust like that. And the opportunity cost of them throwing away Jinx, a little 2 victory point city, is nothing compared to taking our 4 victory point Cobalt. But it's really hard to tell, and we had some complicated math to do. We were really hoping that the workers would find a way to win Kingsland, and that the Cass faction would take Zarek. That ended up not happening, but there was this little golden thread that we might have been able to kind of manifest and win the game. But again, it ended up not happening. But what an experience. What a true super fun experience, and such a unique structure for a board game, a strategy game. Bits of subterfuge, diplomacy, risk. At a couple times I got Axis and Allies vibes just with the stacking of different kinds of forces for optimal gains. And you know, it can kind of, a game like this is interesting because it can kind of grow into the amount of time and space that you allow it to have in your life. It can't shrink too much below the minimum mandatory amount of actions that you have to take per day, but you can find ways to limit the amount of time that you must spend on the game. And the number one way of doing that is by playing a faction. Playing in a faction allows you to have a much better strife-life balance as opposed to playing a wild card. Because being a wild card, you have no one else to rely on to respond to your messages, to speak up for yourself in forums. And there's, in a full game, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 other individuals, 6 other wild cards that are looking to, at every point of the game, get your customers to give them your money. The money that should be going to you. That's your rightful birthright as a wild card. So I would really not suggest to most noobs to play a wild card as your first experience. That might be unpopular. Maybe there's some vets out there that would disagree with me, but I really think that the best onboarding point that you can have is from the perspective of a faction. Specifically, I think the planner is a great onboarding point. The commander is also pretty good. Just don't make too many unilateral decisions as the commander. But the speaker is probably the most, let's say, it has an extremely high soft skills ceiling. And the floor is also pretty significantly high, meaning you have to have quite decent skills, soft skills, to be able to not piss off all the other factions immediately and not piss off the wild cards. You have to juggle a lot of things politically. But where you can really shine is with a high skill ceiling, where you are laying traps, falsifying information, and really kind of pulling the strings of the board to your favor. And I think that the cast speaker did a really good job of this. The cast speaker was putting out a lot of pressure just by virtue of their connections with different wildcards. In addition, the arrow speaker was able to really express a lot of power and pressure onto us through their relationships with wildcards. Ours provided a lot of utility to us for ourselves and only ourselves when we were able to exercise those relationships. But remember that early on, the Highwayman betrayed us, and the Spy Master, is a self-proclaimed noob, said that this was his first game, his first time playing, or at least first time being Spy Master. I remember them saying some things about clarifying rules that I think Yvette would probably know if it was not their first game. So yeah, ultimately, final review, I think this game has an extremely high amount of potential, and it does take a certain kind of person, but there's so many different niches that kind of person could fall into, where they could find this game extremely satisfying. If you enjoy teamwork in any form, I think that you could be a decent faction player. And then the specifics of the wild cards kind of cater to different types of play styles. I very much could see a world where someone that really enjoys playing the Spy Master would hate being the aeronaut and just being trapped in this hurricane going around the map selling your cannon shots. You know, that might be so boring to them compared to the subterfuge that the Spy Master can get embroiled in. Or someone might enjoy being the Wanderer, certainly not me, walking around to these different checkpoints, through the different checkpoints, picking up these red chests and kind of turning themselves into a thermonuclear bomb, a one-man army. But like I said, there's playstyles for a lot of different people, and the really cool thing is that the game is still being made, and Ryan from Ryan Makes Games is still taking feedback. Now, he's put a lot more thought into this than any one of us has, or collectively probably all of us combined. But it doesn't mean that if you are a bushy-eyed or bright-eyed, bushy-tailed noob and you come in and you start throwing out suggestions that he's going to drop everything and implement it. But do some playtests, get involved, and after each playtest, he hops in Discord with the teams that played, and he asks questions, and you are free to answer. That's not the only way to get a hold of him, but imagine the kinds of legitimacy that your opinions could gain had you just played a game, as opposed to jumping into the Discord, reading some about it, watching a couple after actions, and then going, hey, Ryan, change this. So I very much encourage people to join the Discord, Days Without Strife Discord, get involved, sign up for the next playtest, and maybe you will even be on a faction with me. Thanks for watching. It's been a fun journey, and have a great day.